Thank you, sir, and my friend all. Um, to, in in this opportunity, allow me to presentate my job about cell and tissues of animal. Uh, I'm sorry because I didn't prepare well. So I maybe if I make a mistake, sir and friend can can help me. Uh, for the first topic is why cell and tissue in animal is less durable than in plant. Uh, Comparison between animal cell and plant cell. For the first is animal cell. Animals are made up of millions of cells. Animal cells have an irregular structure and are made up of four key parts. For the first, nucleus. This contains genetic material and control the cell activity. Second is cell membrane, a flexible layer that surround the cell and control the substance that enter and exit. The third is cytoplasm, a jelly-like substance where the chemical reaction happen. For the fourth is mitochondria. This is where energy is released from the food molecule. For the plant cell, plants are also made up of millions of cells. Plant cells have a nucleus, cell membrane, cytoplasm, a mitochondria too, but they also contain the following structure. Cell wall, a hard layer outside the cell membrane containing cellulose to provide strength to the plant. Vacuole, a space inside the cell that is used to store substance and help the cell keep its shape. Chloroplast, a structure that contain the green pigment chlorophyll, which are a key part of photosynthesis. Uh, Plant cell can live longer than animal cell because plant cell have advantage compared to animal cell. Plant cell have a cell wall that can protect cell from invasion from outside. This is evidenced by the shape of the plant cell which remain because it is resistant to the cell wall. In contrast to animal cell which do not have a cell wall but a plasma membrane. The plasma membrane is indeed selectively permeable, but this is still lacking because sometimes cells can be damaged and are likely to be more likely to enter foreign objects. Apart from cell wall, plant cells also have vacuole that are relatively larger than animal cells which have small or perhaps no vacuoles. This causes plant to have more food reserve than animal cell. Plant stem cell can undergo repair of damaged cell. Just like animal cell, plant cell can also regenerate against physical injury. This is anti-plant in terms of survival from predator. Uh, for the second question uh, is about how the nuclear radiation could disrupt the normal function of the cell. In this case, an electron is emitted from the atom. Let's take a look at the structure of an atom. In the center of the atom is a nucleus. Traveling around the nucleus are electrons. If the atom were the size of a baseball field, the nucleus would be smaller than a golf ball. Electrons can be forced from their orbit by energy from radiation. This process is called ionization or electrolytic dissociation. Uh, Different from electron exchange in typical chemical reaction, predicting which electron will be emitted by exposure to radiation is impossible. Ion, also called radical, generate in this way are extremely unstable chemically. They have very high level of chemical reactivity and therefore generate indiscriminate chemical reaction. Radiation and electron bombarded by radiation move haphazardly inside the cell, resulting in damage to the various molecules forming the cell. Chromosomal DNA inside the cell nucleus can also be damaged. Mm. Um, for the third question in my job is how the tissues of cockroach and water bear could withstand the destructive effect of nuclear radiation.
Okay.
Cockroach ability to withstand extreme radiation exposure is due to the simple design of their body and slower cell cycle. Cells are said to be most sensitivity to radiation when they are dividing. But given that a typical cockroach only molt about once a week and its cell only divide within a 48-hour period during that week, about 3 per 4 of the cockroach exposed to the blast would not be particularly susceptible to damage by ionizing radiation, at least relative to those whose cells were currently dividing. For the four for question is about how a neuron cell could generate the electricity by itself. Nerve cell generate electrical signal that transmit information. Although neurons are not intrinsically good conductor of electricity, they have evolved elaborate mechanism for generating electrical signal based on the flow of ion across their plasma membrane. Ordinary neuron generate a negative potential called the resting membrane potential that can be measured by recording the voltage between the inside and outside of nerve cell. The action potential abolishes the negative resting potential and make the transmembrane potential transiently positive. Action potential are propagated along the length of axon and are the fundamental signal that carry information from one place to another in the nervous system. Generating of both the resting potential and the action potential can be understood in terms of the nerve cell selective permeability uh, to different ions and of the normal distribution of these ions across the cell membrane. Uh, Sorry, sir, and I'm sorry, my friend. Uh, maybe uh, I'm able until this because I really didn't know how I can uh, how I can presentate this topic because I really doesn't know, sir. Maybe until now, I'm sorry for my mistake, sir and my friend. Assalamualaikum
Okay.
warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Okay, roughly. Actually, you answer every single question correctly. So there are four important questions, and actually, you hit the point correctly every single question. So, but I will add some explanations about related with your previous explanations that you answer about the largest question is about how the neurons could generate electricity and how also, for example, the radiation could affect the cells and also how particular animals like a cockroach or tardigrades could also withstand the effect of radiations. And also the first question is about uh, why the animal cell is less durable, is weaker as compared with the plant cells, and you correctly answered that is due to the structures of the cell itself, as you mentioned in your presentations that the cells walls, so particular properties of plant cells, its cell walls. So in the physical point of view, we notice that this is really important to support the endurance, the strength of such cells or tissues. Therefore, the plant cells, commonly stronger as compared with that animal cells. So, I would like also share my slide, and this is additional slide explaining about the same concept as previously explained it by roughly, and all my slide also in in accordance in the same way how explained about the cells and tissues of animals. So we focus on the physic concepts about it. Can you see my slide right now, everybody?
I can see, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I can see that, sir.
Okay, so let me repeat again about the previous questions answered by the roughly your Gibron. I love to call him a Gibron. So the first question is why cells or tissues in animal is less durable than in plants? That's correct, very correct answer. Actually, is due to the particular structures of the plant cells is the cell's walls. It contains the cell's walls, but not in animal cells. So these cell walls, you see here, this is animal cell membrane. They only have this kind of structures, the membrane cells, and plant cells also has the membrane cells, but this is the plant structures, the cell wall structures of the plant cells here. So you as a basic, as a student learning about basic, you may mimic such a kind of the designs in order to, designs a kind of the layers that could withstand a kind of the physical damage. Jadi Ananda sekalian dari fisika mungkin bisa terinspirasi untuk mendesain struktur yang memiliki kelenturan dan kekuatan seperti like a cell walls of the plants like this. So you see here that the very or well arranged structures like this. So there is a pectin. This is a very strong cellulose here. So cellulose microfibrils and glycans, cross-linking glycans, and that's also supported by the pectins. This is the common structures, the primary structures of the cell wall that support the cells to be stronger as compared with the animal cells that only has that membranes, not the cells walls. And inspired by these structures, you can also make designs, this typical structures, constructions of the cells walls that could be applied in. For example, in the pictures, you may design a kind of a shield, or jadi kalian bisa mendesain semacam perisai misalnya, atau a kind of the protectors for compartment for device letter inspired by this kind of designs. Of course, this is the God designs about the cells walls. So see here that the yellow is cellulose microfibrils. So there is structures like this. This is cellulose, and this is the lignin or pectin, and this is hemicellulose. So the constructions is really arranged and very well constructions, and not only due to the strength of these structures, also actually the designs of tissue itself. Tissue is combinations of cells. So one cells and other cells still could be communicated through a kind of the pitch. So there is a very small hole this between the two cell walls that mediate the communication between one cell to others. So that, and also the ransman is kind of a hexagonal ransman. Jadi ada struktur heksagonal yang lebih mirip pada sel-sel tumbuhan, pada jaringan tumbuhan. Itu akan secara fisik seperti susunan bata yang kokoh. So it's really different with the structures of the animal cells or animal tissues. That is less durable compared with the plant cells. So the very correct question answer from roughly that the animal cells is less durable because animal cells lack of cell walls. And why plant cell is stronger is because the structures of the plant cells walls are really designed by God using the physical concept. You see here that there is a upper and lower layers, and there is a middle part up here constructed like, yeah, when you build a building. Jadi seperti ketika kalian menyusun bangunan, tembok, nah seperti itulah desain dari cells walls of the plant cells, and therefore it is stronger. And for the next questions is about how the nuclear radiations, for examples like X-rays or gamma rays or any kind of the rays, including the ultraviolet UV radiations that we may expose every day in our life, particularly in tropical regions like our regions here. So you see here that why the radiations could affect the normal functions of the cells. So Gibran said that it is due to, uh, it could affect the damage of the nuclei. This is the particular damage. It's really, really, harm that may damage the cells is because the radiations, ionizing radiations or nuclear radiations, uh, damage kind of genetic materials inside the cells. So in physics, you may design a kind of a radiation device that could kill cancer. Jadi di fisika kan banyak sekali, ada fisika radiasi gitu ya, fisika nuklir biasanya misalnya design about the device, jadi alat-alat radiasi that is used to kill the cancer cells. Jadi ada apa namanya, desainer alat yang memfokuskan untuk membunuh sel-sel kanker dan tidak membunuh sel normal. However, the common radiations, jadi harus dipertimbangkan bahwa the common radiations like UV and other radiations could kill the cells. It is okay if the cells is dead because we just, for example, it could be it could be changed by other new cells. But you see here, there are several possibilities when one cell is exposed to the radiation. Jadi ada beberapa possibility kalau seandainya suatu sel kena radiasi dari sinar X dan sebagainya. What will happen? The first possibility is that the DNA damage is occur. Jadi ada kerusakan DNA-nya. However, the cells also has the capability to self-repair. Jadi perlu kita ketahui bahwa sel itu memiliki kemampuan untuk self-repairing, bisa menyembuhkan diri sendiri, memperbaiki DNA-nya. So if these cells successfully repair DNA structures, then cells will correctly repair. So no problem with this. So the DNA damage will be repaired and the cells will stay normal. There is no problem. But unfortunately, there are two other possibilities. The first is when the cells is repaired, so DNA damage beyond repair. So the first possibility is that the cells fail to repair is DNA damage, and therefore, yes, it will lead the cell die. I mean, the cell will be died later, and then it will cause, yeah, it's kind of, for example, if you are exposed to the very high radiations, then you will experience the burns. Jadi Anda mungkin akan terbakar, akan hangus, akan rusak jaringan gitu. That is the first effect. But sometimes that is sometimes like something silence, but it is slowly kill you and permanently kill you is the third possibility. Jadi ada kemungkinan ketiga adalah ketika suatu radiasi mengenai nukleus atau inti sel, and then the cells experience the DNA damage. Jadi sel itu mengalami kerusakan DNA, and unfortunately when the cells try to repair it, jadi sel memiliki program untuk memperbaiki DNA-nya, kerusakan DNA-nya, but then the cells undergo the DNA misrepair. So it tried to repair, to fix it, but unfortunately the repairing is incomplete. Jadi perbaikannya itu salah, lack of repairing. And what will happen here? That these cells will incorrectly repair, and then it will be these cells will has a very great opportunity to be transformed to cancer cells or tumor cells. Jadi ini masalahnya bahwa ketika sel normal diradiasi, kemudian dia akan mengalami kerusakan material genetik, and when the cells try to repair itself and it failed, and then it will turn to be mutants, and then these mutant cells will be very wild, very dangerous cells, and it will develop to be tumor or cancers. That is a problem when the cells. So there are three possibilities: the cell will be repaired normally, or the cells will be died, or cells will be repaired or failed to be repaired, and then therefore it's still alive, but it will be transformed to be the cancer or tumor cells. And this is how, for example, still related with us, the answers of the Gibran, that it is the radiations will damage the structures of DNA, because as we have learned during your previous senior high school, for example, you have learned about the structures of the DNA, and the structures of DNA is really sensitive about of the radiations. Jadi sangat mudah sebenarnya untuk merusak DNA itu dengan faktor-faktor fisik, dengan asam, dengan basa, dengan radiasi, dengan gelombang elektromagnetik pun we could interfere, we could damage the structures. And as you see here that same as we have previously I have previously explained that there are three possibilities: that when the DNA damage occurs, then incomplete repair of the DNA, and then it causes the mutations, and these mutations will be a kind of cancers or mutations that will be inherited by the next generations of viewers, or when the repair fail, and then cells will be dead. So it will kill all kind of your tissues or your entire body. Or there is no problem because your cells could repair it normally, and then cells will be survived as well. And what about the UV radiations, for example, when you are exposed, when you're playing on the beach, and then you are exposed to very high intensity and in long term of UV exposure, and it may damage, as you see here, that actually UV radiations could kill or could kill that kind of this. So commonly UVC, for example, UVB, UVB is very long, and it just affect these layers. The keratinosis is a very superficial in epidermal layers of our skins, and it may cause the sunburn. Jadi biasanya kalau kita kena radiasi UVB, itu biasanya terbakar, sunburn. However, when UVA is dominated, exposed to our body, and particularly on our dermis layers of the skins, it will cause the damage, the mutations. So it will cause the damage of DNA in our skin cells. Jadi biasanya dia bisa memicu mutasi karena terjadinya kerusakan DNA pada sel-sel kulit. And here it is, it could kill you related to the cancer development of the cancer cells. Why? Because the mutations couldn't be repaired normally by our cells, and therefore it will develop to be the cancer cells, and you will get the skin cancers. So related to the use of UV radiations, there is benefit that there is a benefit for the black, or like us, the skin color, the coloring people, instead of like albinisms or white people, because they are lacking of melanocyte. This is the pigment, and this pigment is really important for us to protect the excessive radiations that may kill the fibroblast cells and or cause the mutations in fibroblast cells. Jadi beruntung kita dengan orang-orang yang memiliki kulit berwarna and slightly dark or even darker. It is really protect you from the negative effect of UV radiations that may trigger the cancer cells like this one. And also recently, as you read in many paper, and particularly like this in 2017, there is research showing that actually the electromagnetic radiations also could affect the hormonals of our body, and it will reduce the the capability of you to be reproducible in your body. So by constantly exposed into the long term of a kind of magnetic radiations, electromagnetic radiations from your electronic device, like from cell phone or from the cell phone tower, or even like laptops and other electronic device, it will affect your brain for particularly, and also in your glands. It's kind of pituitary glands, and then because this pituitary gland controls the activity of your testes, the cells in your testes, and it will affect the levels of the hormones produced by your testes, and the consequence, it will reduce the numbers of your sperm and the capability of your sperm to mobile, and also will damage the normal structures of the sperm, and also will reduce the viability, the ability of your sperm to survive, and it is closely associated with the last reproductive uh, you know problem with you. Jadi radiasi elektromagnetik juga could affect the cells, particularly that's reproductive cells. So the next question is, okay, so the next question is how the tissue of cockroach and water bear could withstand the destructive effect of nuclear radiation. So previously, or roughly also correctly answered that it is actually due to that activity of such cells, because here you see here actually in cells with active cell divisions, jadi sel-sel yang aktif membelah di tubuh kita, as compared with the no cell divisions or inactive cell division, it will also determines whether these cells will be sensitive to radiations or not. Here, the higher levels of this one, the more sensitive of such cells to be affected by radiations. Jadi semakin aktif suatu sel membelah, maka semakin sensitif dia terhadap effect of radiations. And here, let's show here, for example, hematopoietic systems. Jadi di sumsum tulang kita, cells in bone marrow, in your bone marrow, and in your lymphatic tissue, like in your spleen, the limpa anda, the thymus gland, or the nodus lymphaticus, misalnya di sekujur tubuh kita. This is really highly sensitive to radiations. Why? Because the activity of the cells in this location is actively devoid. Jadi karena mengapa sel-sel di situ kan aktif membelah. And also like in testis and ovary, also very sensitive to radiation, because you produce the sperm every single second of your life, and therefore there are cell divisions, many cell divisions taking place at the moments, and it will be very sensitive to radiations. And the lower is gastrointestinal system, for example, only. Jadi di saluran pencernaan kita itu kan yang aktif melakukan mitosis di mana adalah di permukaannya. Please remember that actually the activity of mitosis or cell divisions in our gastrointestinal tract, di sepanjang saluran pencernaan kita itu sangat aktif mitosisnya. Karena misalnya kalau kita makan itu banyak sekali jaringan mukosa kita yang tergerus, mulai dari rongga mulut, kerongkongan, kemudian esophagus, ventriculus, intestinum, dan sampai ke bawah sana, sampai ke kolon, sampai di saluran kotoran kita itu adalah permukaannya, the epithelial cells. Jadi sel-sel yang melapisi saluran itu actually slightly active in mitosis. Jadi dia lebih aktif membelah. Karena mengapa kan setiap kita makan itu biasanya terutama makanan-makanan yang keras itu pasti will cause the damage of the cells, and then it will be repaired by itself. Jadi akan selalu terjadi kerusakan di sana, tetapi kemudian akan digantikan oleh sel-sel yang baru. It is mean that actually the cells composing of this tract of our gastrointestinal system, dari saluran pencernaan kita itu sangat very actively devoid, cukup aktif membelah, tetapi tidak seaktif di saluran di organ-organ reproduksi, di testis dan ovari gitu ya. Karena gastrointestinal system itu kan we we don't eat every time, right? We just eat, for example, 3 or 4 times a day, and it is meant that the challenge for the damage of the cells is really lower as compared with the reproductive systems. And but the lower is the nerve and also blood vessels and muscles and bones. Jadi kalau sistem saraf, sel-sel saraf, kemudian blood vessels, pembuluh darah, and muscles and bones are less sensitive to radiations because the cell division, karena pembelahan selnya lebih rendah dibandingkan dengan sel-sel yang lain. So what causes the sensitivity of our tissues or our organs to the radiations, the effect of radiation is ditentukan oleh the activity of the divisions of cells. But the next question is why? Mengapa kok sel yang aktif dia menjadi lebih sensitif dengan radiasi? So I want to show you here. So this is you maybe have learned it when you were in senior high school. You have learned about the mitosis. So this is prophase, for example, and this is metaphase, and then this is telophase and the cytokinesis. So this is the image of cell divisions. Jadi ini adalah ilustrasi tentang pembelahan cells. As you see here that when the cells is in early stage of the activity, jadi ketika sel itu masih dalam kemasannya dalam bentuk nukleus, maka material genetik di sini kan terkemas dengan baik, and it is covered by the membranes of the nuclei. Jadi dia dilindungi juga dengan membran inti, kemudian bentuknya juga kompak. And the more the higher the stage of the divisions of the cell, like this is prophase and metaphase, this is still metaphase and telophase, and this is cytokinesis causate. Jadi semakin tinggi tingkatan pembelahannya sampai ke metafase seperti ini, kalian lihat. So the blue is this is the green is cytokines. This is it's not cytokine, it's a kind of fibers that will pull and mobile pull the kind of the our chromosomes. Jadi ini adalah kromosom material genetik. So you may understand based on this a kind of illustrations. Jadi kalian bisa melihat di sini yang mana yang lebih sensitif dengan radiasi. Mengapa sel yang membelah sensitif dengan radiasi? Karena ketika dia membelah, material genetiknya itu terurai, kurang lebih gitu ya. Bukan terurai dengan strukturnya, tetapi dia terpisah-pisah satu sama lain. Itu akan memungkinkan bahwa paparan ketika kalian menyinari daerah ini misalnya dengan radiasi, maka tentu akan terlindungi oleh membran selnya, dan akan terlindungi juga dengan kekompakannya. Jadi ada bagian-bagian ketika misalnya kalian hanya menyinarinya dari satu sisi, maka ada akan bagian-bagian lain ketika dia masih dalam bentuk lipatan, bagian-bagian lain yang terlindung dari radiasi. So it is will be safer. Jadi dia akan lebih aman karena ada daerah-daerah yang tidak kena radiasi. Tetapi kalau ini kalian lihat akan banyak sekali permukaan yang terpapar oleh radiasi ketika sel berada di dalam misalnya fase metafase. Mengapa begitu? Karena dia tidak dalam kemasan, tidak dalam lipatan, maka otomatis radiasi itu akan mudah sekali merusak struktur-struktur genetic materials inside these chromosomes. And therefore, this is the concept why that cell divisions, the activity of cell divisions will define whether the such a cells will be sensitive or not to the radiation. Jadi sangat menentukan apakah sel tersebut, apakah individu tersebut atau bagian dari tubuh individu tersebut sensitif atau tidak dengan radiasi, will be affected hardly or not with the radiation is determined by that activity of self divisions. Jadi, like previously, Gibran roughly said that actually in the cockroach, you know that the mitosis in a cockroach, in its entire organs of the cockroach is really slow as compared with the humans, and therefore because the cell division is really lower, as compared with the human, for example, and other organisms. And therefore, when we expose the cockroach to the radiations, like from X-rays or even UV radiations, then the cells will be less sensitive. Why? Because the cells divisions of the cockroach is also very less. Jadi karena mengapa aktivitas pembelahan sel pada kecoa itu kan lebih rendah daripada manusia, and therefore it will be stronger against that radiation. Jadi dia lebih tidak sensitif dengan radiasi, lebih tahan dia dengan radiasi, tidak mudah terkena karena material genetiknya juga tidak sedang terekspos ketika itu dengan ini karena pembelahannya. Jadi like previously roughly said, cockroach may undergo the cell cycles about 48 hours. Jadi satu siklus pembelahan mitosis pada cockroach, pada kecoa itu sampai 48 jam. It's different with humans that may taken place in every single minute, for example, in our testes or in our ovariums. So it will be, highly different between the sensitivity of cockroach and humans. And also here, there is the strongest animals in the world is Tardigrada. So this is water bear, the microscopic organisms. Call it water bear. Jadi dia sering dibilang beruang air gitu ya, tardigrade. So tardigrade is actually microscopic organisms, and you see here that these animals are really strong. Could withstand the very super lower temperatures, minus 200 degrees Celsius. Could you imagine that when you touch that surface of your refrigerators and 44 degrees Celsius, jadi dengan permukaan kulkas 4 derajat Celsius saja, kadang-kala kita sudah very feel so uncomfortable about it. And what about below minus 200 degrees Celsius? It's very super low, and also could withstand the very high temperatures like 151 degrees Celsius. A very broad range of ability to withstand the exposure to the temperatures. And also about the pressure, 6 times pressures of the deepest oceans. So it could also live in a very high pressure. And also, could you imagine here, as compared to human, jadi ketika dibandingkan dengan human, sel-sel pada tardigrade ini 1000 kali lebih kuat dia dengan menghadapi radiasi X, sinar X, as compared to humans. So why? It is due to also because the material genetics itself has this shield. Jadi material genetiknya juga punya pelindung, punya sistem pelindung, punya sistem perbaikan yang sangat bagus. And also it's also could, the mitosis, the cell division of these animals is also very slow. Jadi pembelahannya itu juga sangat lambat. Aktivitas mitosisnya juga sangat lambat. Otomatis dia menjadi sangat tahan dengan radiasi. And also these animals able to reproduce after 10 days in space vacuums, and regenerated from dried moss after 100 years. So this is really strong animals. Jadi dia bisa berhibernasi kurang lebih gitu ya, dia bisa beristirahat selama 100 tahun, dan kemudian ketika dia akan mengering dalam bentuk partikel, tetapi kemudian ketika dia tidak mati, the cells is still live there, but very low activities of such cells with 1.0 metabolic rate, jadi dengan laju metabolisme yang sangat rendah. And therefore these animals are really strong and could withstand including the radiations. And what about the latest questions? So how neuron cells could regenerate electricity by itself? So so it is that, like previously Gibran said that, wait, I will need to check it. Like previously Gibran explained that actually due to the activity of mobilizations of the ions, jadi karena ada aktivitas ion keluar masuk salurannya di membran sel saraf. So in like this is the physical concept that we in biology usually use this device, the voltmeter, to measure the electricity of the cells. So we can measure the difference of voltage. Jadi kita biasanya mengukur perbedaan voltase antara the insides of the cells and outside of the neuron cells. And during the resting period, jadi ketika saraf kita itu dalam kondisi tidak bekerja atau beristirahat, there is a potential electric potential about minus 70 millivolt. Jadi ada perbedaan potensial sebesar minus 70 millivolt yang terbentuk antara inside the cells and outside the cells. And so this is electricity have owned by this neurons, and this electricity could be changed to be like plus 20 millivolt. Jadi dia bisa berubah menjadi lebih tinggi, minus 70 menjadi plus 20 millivolt dalam hitungan 1/10 millisekon in our neurons. This is very, very like in a very short moment, and it will change into the very high levels of the voltage. Could you imagine from minus 70 millivolt to be plus 20 millivolt? You should increase the voltage about 19 millivolt. 90 I mean. Jadi harus naik sampai 90 millivolt kan. Kalau minus 70 kan 0 itu sudah 70 millivolt, dari 0 ke 20 kan 20 lagi. So it is mean that these neurons could alter this voltage in a very short moment. Ya.
Pak, mohon maaf Pak.
Ya.
Kayaknya baterai saya tinggal 2%, Pak. Dan sini juga mati lampu, Pak.
Oke.
Nanti kalau misalnya saya leave, Pak, saya mohon izin ya, Pak.
Yep. Okay. So I'll continue. So this is as you see here that actually, as previously roughly said, this is due to how the neurons could generate the electricity. Kenapa kok neuron bisa menghasilkan muatan listrik seperti ini yang bisa melonjak dari minus 70 menjadi plus 20 millivolt, jadi naik sebanyak 90 millivolt dalam hitungan 1/10 milisekon. It's due to the mobility, the activity of the ions moving from inside to outside of the cells or in reverse. Jadi ada pertukaran ion-ion melalui membran dari sel saraf kita itu, dari dalam sel keluar sel dan sebaliknya gitu ya. And because this mobility of the ions, and it will generate the electricity in very short moments, and therefore our neurons have a very strong capability in generating of the electricity. So that is a kind of our explanation to show here. This is the neurons during the resting period. Jadi ketika periode istirahat saraf kita, di dalam itu it tend to be negative when you measure it in electricity, tend to be negative, and outside tend to be positive. And then when then the channels is open like this, open, and then the ion, for example, is in out place, and this is sodium channels, or sodium ions, or chloride or calciums will move inside. Jadi kalau kita nanti ada, there is a process that will induce the opening of this such ion channels. Jadi ada suatu proses stimulus, misalnya dia akan membukakan saluran ion ini, and therefore the ion could be mobilized inside or outside to the cells to generate the change in electricity. So I think all the questions have been answered correctly by roughly only present by himself, but that he correctly answered in very single questions about it. Why the cells or tissue in animals is less durable, because it's due to that cells walls and in plant cells but not in animal cells, and how the nuclear radiations may affect the normal function, because the nuclear radiations will damage the DNA structures, and how the particular animal like cockroach and water bear are stronger as compared to humans against the radiation, because the self-diffusion of such animals is slower or lower as compared to the humans and other sensitive organisms also. And the last question is how the neuron cells could generate electricity, because the neurons had a very particular ion channels that will mediate the mobility of the ion inside to outside the cells or in reverse atau sebaliknya, and therefore it will generate the electrochemical gradients and then produce the electricity. Jadi the key is about the ion channels. Okay, so I will stop this one. Okay, so I think that is my additional explanations about our lectures today, and unfortunately, the roughly it's lab because he has a problem with this question. So, Nikan, do you have a questions?
Yes, sir. I have a question.
Yeah, please, Nikan.
So, sir, about chemotherapy is a treatment for a cancer,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
yes, yes, the fact is a chemotherapy can spoil our healthy DNA, or Indonesian meaning is DNA. So how about your opinion? What the chemotherapy same with I think is apa sih tadi namanya?
Radiations?
Yes, radiasi, sir. Radiation.
Okay, so the first is in radiation. So there is called irradiations. Jadi radiasi itu ada radiasi, ada irradiasi. So irradiation is directed radiations. Jadi radiasi yang terkontrol. So in case of like the breast cancers or even like radiation for another cancers like the brain cancers also, the dosage or the level of the exposures and the times and also the targets is also correctly managed by the doctors, and therefore it is will of course it will affect will induce the negative effect like killing another cells as well. It's not only the cancer cells, but the negative effect causing the DNA damage for other normal cells is commonly less as compared with that like incidence radiations. Jadi mengapa kalau irradiasi namanya kalau di rumah sakit dan sebagainya itu untuk terapi, mengapa dia menjadi tidak terlalu berbahaya seperti radiasi yang kita bayangkan? Pertama, they also determine about the dosage. Jadi dosis dari radiasi itu seberapa besar paparannya. It is also calculated well, and also the durations also durasinya, how long the radiation will be conducted. It also will well managed by medical doctors. Jadi the dosage and also the durations of radiations and also the intervals, intervals. So when you are, for example, having cancers and you should undergo the radiotherapy, you couldn't take radiations in every single day or every single week. And it should be, for example, like every 3 months, once in the 3 months. The durations, I mean the interval between one radiations and other radiations, and sometimes the dosages also will be turned to be lowered. Jadi biasanya dosis pertama segini, kemudian the next radiation 3 months later it will also be managed to be lower. Jadi in radiotherapy everything is calculated well, and therefore it will minimize the impact, the negative impact into that of a kind of the DNA damage or other physical effect in the patients, and therefore it should be effective with very, it's not a very, just a low lower negative impact as compared with that incident radiations. Jadi biasanya karena dia termanage di sana, dosisnya terkendali, diketahui, dikalkulasikan, kemudian lama radiasinya berapa menit atau berapa detik pun ditentukan, kemudian interval jarak antara satu radiasi ke radiasi lain juga ditentukan, and also the patient itself also sometimes supported by the medicines. Jadi dia biasanya juga setelah radiasi dan sebelum radiasi itu kan diberi obat yang akan juga mensupport the tissues and also the physiological systems to minimize such an impact of radiation itself. But still, as you see that the radiotherapy also may affect the negative side effect, like yeah, at least for example, it will cause the damage in your hair. Jadi banyak sekali sebenarnya efeknya, tetapi it is, still it is lesser as compared with the incident radiations. So that is Nikan. Hello, Nikan.
Sir, thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, you're welcome. Lindu, do you have any other question? Tuti, Fajri, Nabila, Cindy, and then Cairo.
Sir, I want to ask you.
Okay, please, Nabila.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. But this is out of our topic. I want to ask you: is this our class has a pre UTS?
Probably not. We just have like mid semester tasks, something like that. So there is no pre task for our lectures. So I just obtained the lectures. I will tag a kind of evaluations on your presentations and your activity in the class, and then probably only the mid semester. That is for me. So there is no kind of the quizzes.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, welcome. But also, I will also will evaluate you from every end of our lectures. You will make a summarize to
Yes.
a kind of resume of your lectures, and therefore I will also evaluate it from there. So many kind of evaluations that I got from our lectures. So from your attendance, and also from your presentations, and from your discussions in the class, and also from your resume. So I think that that's quite enough for me to conduct evaluations on you, and therefore I don't have to perform kind of the pre task for the before the mid semesters. So only the mid semesters later we will have that the examinations kind of that. Any other questions? Okay, so I think
Sir,
please,
excuse me, sir.
Nikan. Do you have another questions?
I have
Please.
one question. Yes.
Yeah,
Uh,
please.
uh, yes. So in wait. In di pertanyaan yang pertama tadi, yang punya si Rafli,
Yeah.
it's a plant cells can live longer than animal cells. So how about in real life, like a flower, more than die more than like cats? Or
Okay,
in
so
Indonesia meaning kenapa bunga itu lebih cepat matinya daripada kucing? Gitu.
okay, so yes, for that point, it's quite incorrect. If we just determine it with this is actually should be performed in the experimental situations. Jadi kondisi seperti itu hanya bisa dibuktikan dengan with the experiments. So when we collect the single cells of the animal cells and the single cells of the plants, and then we maintain it in mediums. Kita memeliharanya di mediums, and we measure it how long the buds of the cells will survive, and commonly that plant cells will survive longer as compared with the animal cells. So it is only when the cells living as when we determine in the point of a single cells. But if we compare as individuals, we couldn't justify it. Jadi kalau kita misalnya mengevaluasinya, menentukan seberapa lama sel itu bertahan hidup dengan melihat daya hidup individu, it couldn't directly reflected it, because for example like our skin cells, jadi sel-sel kulit kita ini berganti kan, mati dia ganti mati dia gitu. Jadi Probably only is like tans, or it's depend on the environmental situations, like under the very hot radiations, for example, like in tropical regions, we may undergo the very rapid alterations or change in our skin cells. It is mean that the length of life of our skin cells is shorter as compared with other cells. So that's the point actually. If you compare, for example, between the cells of the leaf. Jadi kalau kita misalnya membandingkan antara sel pada pada daun atau sel pada bunga dari tumbuh-tumbuhan, and we compare it, for example, with the blood cells, and we sustain it, we maintain it in the same in the mediums in the lab, and then we will determine the length of the life cells. Of course, the plant cell will be stay longer. Jadi secara umum kalau kita melihatnya ya dari level selnya itu sendiri gitu ya. Tetapi kalau kita melihat mengevaluasinya dari umur individu yang disusun oleh sel tersebut, we couldn't determine about the length of life of every single cells. Karena kita tidak melihat sel-sel mana sebenarnya. Jadi kayak bunga, daun, apapun sebenarnya dia mengalami kerusakan sel juga. Tetapi ada sel-sel baru yang akan menggantikannya. Dan kan kita tidak tahu satu sel itu berapa lama dia bertahan gitu ya. Tetapi commonly ketika kita sama-sama mengukur lamanya hidup dari masing-masing sel itu, biasanya sel-sel tumbuhan akan bertahan lebih lama di dalam medium dibandingkan dengan sel-sel hewan gitu ya. So that is Nikon.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. So I think there is no other questions. We will finish our lectures today. So thank you. Even roughly it's disappearing in our lectures, but hopefully that he will also still continue watching the video after all, because I am recording our meeting today, and you may also could watch it later. And okay, I think don't forget to make a resume for our lectures today and submit it. As I previously last week, I have collected all your resume and now I'm evaluating it. And also don't forget for the next presenters, we'll talk about organ systems in animals. So there will be Cairo and Ayu will be a presenter for the next week. So please prepare your presentations and we will discuss later. And I also will give a kind of, additional explanations for our topics. Hopefully these lectures will improve our understandings about science, understandings of life, and therefore it could be, be part of your life as scientist in your futures. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.